the U.S. completely blocked the core Iranian oil routes. But right across that sea, at American ports, 68 empty oil tankers are lined up and waiting. They thoroughly controlled the sea routes of others while selling their own oil at a record high. Selling a massive 5.2 million barrels a day, Trump even openly bragged about this. He transformed into an oil merchant using war as an excuse, saying ships are flocking to load sweet crude oil. Right now, global news is entirely buzzing with naval blockades, skyrocketing oil prices, and war fears. But if you look at the hidden side behind that fear, smart money is already moving agilely. Panic selling in fear without knowing the structure of this massive business deal is a choice you will bitterly regret. You must know Trump's true intention and why on earth he blocked the sea at this exact timing. Because you get a clear standard on when this blockade ends and where our money should go. And I will perfectly summarize a clear action plan up to the true meaning of his words about 2 days. First, let us accurately point out the facts about what on earth is happening in the Middle Eastern Sea right now. On April 13th, the U.S. military mobilized aircraft carriers in the Strait of Hormuz, launching an unprecedented naval blockade operation. The U.S. Central Command completely and physically blocked all maritime traffic of vessels entering and leaving Iranian ports. Aegis destroyers and mine clearance vessels were fully mobilized, and the U.S. troops deployed here exceed 3,500. As a result, the number of ships currently trapped inside the Persian Gulf unable to move reaches a whopping 2,000. 1,200 oil tankers, 600 bulk carriers, and 200 container ships are trapped exactly as they are. Unfortunately, 26 Korean ships are included among them and are tied up in this serious situation. The core choke point, where 25% of global crude oil maritime transport passes, is completely blocked by warships. But the strange point here is if the U.S. blocked the oil routes, oil prices should skyrocket and the U.S. should suffer huge damages too. In reality, U.S. gasoline prices, which were less than $3 before the war, have now soared to $4.13. But simultaneously, a bizarre phenomenon is occurring where 60 empty oil tankers are flocking in a continuous line to U.S. Gulf Coast ports. This is an explosive threefold increase compared to last year's monthly average, and it is very surprising according to K. Peeler's analysis. U.S.'s crude oil exports in April jumped 33% in just 1 month and are expected to hit a record high of 5.2 million barrels a day. In particular, demand from Asian countries exploded, blowing a massive storm as exports to Asia surged 82% from the previous month. 80% of the crude oil passing through the Strait of Hormuz goes to Asia, so they all rushed to the U.S. because that route was blocked. He is essentially forcing Asian countries to buy expensive American oil while completely blocking Iranian oil from getting out. Since the U.S. president is bragging that his country's oil is selling well, we can only conclude he perfectly transformed into an oil merchant. But this is not the end, because Trump's real target is not just an oil business, but the massive enemy China. China has a fatal energy, Achilles' heel, relying absolutely on Gulf countries for 42% of its crude oil imports. They previously had a gray network secretly buying cheap Iranian oil through yuan settlements to dodge U.S. sanctions. But this time, since the U.S. military blocked Iranian ports with warships, this entire network was completely paralyzed. In fact, right after the blockade started, an incident even occurred where Chinese tankers urgently turned back while trying to pass the strait. Now do you know why Trump is tightening China's leash right now? Because the U.S.-China summit is held next month for the first time in 10 years. Rare earths are essential for the U.S. to rebuild exhausted weapons, but U.S. processing costs are 4 times higher, and they are 10 years behind. So he set the stage to counterattack, saying 42% of your oil lifeline is in my hands if China thrusts rare earths as a weapon at the summit. Ultimately, this blockade is a multi-purpose card, cutting off Iran's war funds, maximizing U.S. crude oil exports, and pressuring China. But here novice investors get confused, wondering why his approval rating drops terrifyingly if selling lots of oil is good for the economy. This is the boomerang paradox, which is the biggest variable of this situation, because if crude oil exports increase, U.S. domestic inventory empties out. If domestic inventory decreases, U.S. gasoline prices skyrocket, and diesel prices also approach a record high of $5.81 per gallon. The urgent Trump administration released 172 million barrels of strategic reserves to the market, but Asian countries swept them up, causing a backfire. Demand destruction began as Americans exhausted by high oil prices consumed less, leading to a 1.4% drop in gasoline demand. Trump admitted in an interview that high oil prices could continue until the November midterm elections, and Iran openly mocked the U.S. Now we must turn our attention and see what terrible shock this massive butterfly effect is giving the Korean economy and our wallets. The first direct hit is the oil price bomb, with Dubai crude skyrocketing 55%. The second is the electricity bill bomb that will shake all of South Korea, which occurred as Northeast Asian LNG spot prices skyrocketed 81%. As KEPCO's wholesale electricity price linked to the LNG unit cost goes crazy, KEPCO carrying a $206 trillion debt risks financial collapse. The third is the emergency in shipping and aviation, where trapped ships cause daily deficits and war insurance premiums for oil tankers skyrocketed 12 times. Moreover, Korea refines Middle Eastern oil to supply 85% of California's aviation fuel, but this route is completely blocked. A consecutive catastrophe is occurring where the aviation fuel supply chain in the western U.S. collapses, making the global logistics crisis a reality. If you only listen up to here, it sounds like a desperate crisis, but the real core is hidden in the bombshell remark Trump leaked to a reporter. He said something could happen within 2 days, and that they are very close to ending the war, which is absolutely not a simple bluff. It is a signal that behind the scenes, negotiations are fiercely operating, mediated by the Pakistani commander, with continued progress toward an agreement. Of course, megaton-level risks like the April 21st ceasefire expiration, the Revolutionary Guard's retaliation warning, and the end of sanction waivers are tightly opposed. But if negotiations break down and global oil prices surpass $140, warned by Oxford Economics, the global economy will face a catastrophe. Because the pain of domestic inflation is so massive that the U.S. House is even fiddling with an oil export ban bill, negotiations are necessary. Therefore, the smart money on Wall Street is firmly convinced that this blockade can never last forever, although both sides use brinkmanship tactics. The blockade Trump pulled out is a pressure card to end the war and make China surrender, making opening the strait through a dramatic agreement the most likely. It is a very important momentum that will blow away the stock market risk premium, and the second is checking oil tanker traffic on the MarineTraffic app. If the oil tanker traffic passing through the Strait of Hormuz begins to increase again, that is exactly the most certain and practical transition signal. Because ships on the sea move much faster than news announcements of an agreement, you must not miss the moment the traffic resumption signal is caught. Keep in mind that very moment is the truly perfect buying timing when the market trend flips 180 degrees and energy risks fade away. The third is watching discussions on a U.S. crude oil export ban, because if export regulations are mentioned, the oil price structure could shake again, so be careful. If the deep dive analysis of the Economic Hunter today was really helpful, please smash the like button and do not forget to subscribe and set notifications. If you have any risks you are most worried or scared about in your account right now, do not hesitate to write them in the comments.